What's going on, everyone? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. So I actually wanted to do a little bit of a different video today because we had been talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum in our previous video. And if you've been following the channel, I'm one of those odd creators where the altcoin people think I'm a Bitcoin maxi, the Bitcoin maxi people think I'm a shitcoiner. The reality is that I do believe in Bitcoin ultimately long term. And for pretty much the entire cycle, Bitcoin has been the leading coin to be into. I mean, Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. We didn't see Ethereum hit a new all-time high yet, although $300, it's pretty close, right? But the big question is, should we be rotating into Ethereum? Should we just be stacking our Bitcoin? What should we be doing? Well, look, I've made it very clear that the ultimate goal on this channel, for me personally, is to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. But at the same time, I'm also not against making money, especially if you can make money faster than Bitcoin and then potentially convert that into more Bitcoin, helping to build your long-term stack. And there's been a lot of enthusiasm around Ethereum, specifically with Tom Lee. He has BitMine, which was a Bitcoin mining company turned treasury company for Ethereum. And you might have heard some of these crazy predictions about Ethereum possibly having its Bitcoin 2017 moment, right? Now, don't forget, Tom Lee had actually gone on TV when Bitcoin was around $1,000. This was in the beginning of 2017, actually right around the time that I actually started getting into crypto. And he said that Bitcoin could do a 100x. Now, back in early 2017, with Bitcoin sitting at only $1,000, that seemed insane. But yet here we are today with Bitcoin sitting over $100,000. So as crazy as that prediction seemed back in 2017, it did come true. So because Tom Lee had that call, there are a lot of people that are getting excited about Ethereum potentially doing the same thing. And he's saying that Ethereum, as of right now, is having its 2017 Bitcoin moment, which would mean that Ethereum is going to potentially go to $400,000 per coin, possibly. Well, I just wanted to break down the math really quick. There's a key difference, okay? Back in 2017, the market cap of Bitcoin, when it was $1,000, was around roughly 20 billion market cap. Well, Ethereum's market cap is well above 500 today. In fact, it's closer to about a 27x of what Bitcoin was at that time. So if you actually do the math, 100x for Ethereum seems insane, right? But outside of the crazy moon boy math and all that, is Ethereum actually a good purchase right now? I had spoke about Ethereum. We talked about in a few videos ago about how I was adding Ethereum to my portfolio and I was increasing my position as well. And some people might be saying, well, it seems kind of stupid because you had all this time to accumulate Ethereum. You stayed in Bitcoin. Now Ethereum's almost back at its all-time high and you want to buy right now? Well, I want to actually show you something very interesting. This, by the way, was in our LevX exclusive content. If you do want to get that exclusive content outside of YouTube, you can sign up using the link below, or you can click the thing popping up above right now. And we had talked about why Ethereum could be showing signs of a potentially good opportunity right now, even though it's almost at the all-time high. So I'm actually going to play a clip from that real quick, and then we'll hop back. So this is the Ethereum chart right here. And Ethereum has basically been trapped in this range for a long time. If we go all the way back to December of 2020, we were down at around sort of let's say $1,100. We bounce around, we hit this heart line, it's resistance. Then we get to the top, 4,000, we come down, we hit the heart line as support. And what we had right here was a bottom, and this was in the beginning of April, and we are back at all-time highs. So the thing is should you be buying Ethereum here? Because you're basically buying at the highs again. What happens if it comes all the way down, right? Well, why might it actually be a good idea to buy Ethereum right now? This is obviously not financial advice, but let me just show you something that most people are unaware of. This is the Ethereum versus Bitcoin chart. Now, you can see they look a little bit different. Ethereum is quite low. So really what had happened was Ethereum had reached, back in June of 2017, we had Ethereum getting up at around 0.16 of Bitcoin. So that means it was worth 0.16 Bitcoin. That's sort of the highest it's ever been. And since then, we've been struggling to get above 0.08. So what you're seeing right here is this is a massive downtrend for Ethereum, right? You're seeing that compared to Bitcoin, pretty much since we hit the peak back in May of 2021, you really wanted to be in Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin gaining versus Ethereum value. And then we had a bottom right around the 0.01 area, and you could see how that coincides with the bottom of this box. So this box is basically the area where you would want to be sort of accumulating Ethereum. But having a confirmed breakout here, how much would you have missed from the bottom to the top? Okay, so that's about 100%. You could say that that is a lot, right? You did maybe potentially miss that 100% move, but compared to what we had in Bitcoin, okay, Ethereum still has not gotten back to its all-time high, whereas Bitcoin has almost doubled its previous all-time high. And if we go from the lows, if you've been accumulating, then obviously Bitcoin, as you guys can see, would have still been the place in Bitcoin Comparative. So in a nutshell, what this chart is telling you is that pretty much for the last 4 years, the place to be was Bitcoin. But right now, it looks like we are having a sharp uptrend for Ethereum. So at this point, we have, let me just throw something else on here, we have a trend that's beginning to potentially start. So even if we do have the price of Ethereum falling against Bitcoin, this breakout could suggest that it would at least be smart to temporarily rotate some capital into Ethereum. And as you guys can see right here, getting to the top of this box, we'd have about a 64%, and getting back to the previous all-time high, well, not even the previous all-time high, would be 130%, and the all-time high would be a 300% increase. So that video was posted 2 days ago on Levex. That's just an example of some of the exclusive content that you can get over there. If you sign up using the link below, you are eligible. You do have to use that link, and then all you have to do is just go in the search bar, pretty much where you would search for coins, altcoins, whatever, type Crypto Zombie, you'll see my creator profile, and you just click on it, and then as long as you use the link, then it'll give you instant free access, right? So getting back to the ultimate, basically summary of that video, is that really Bitcoin was the coin. And I mean, it ultimately is the long-term coin to be in, but it was definitely the coin to be in throughout the majority of the bull run. We saw that we had these meme coins on Solana. They were sort of flavor of the week. A lot of them trended to zero. We had a lot of scams. We had the Hawk Tua coin, all that other stuff, right? But Bitcoin kept chugging along because it finally got that institutional narrative. We had a lot of good news coming out of the US, but now we do also have a lot of people looking into Ethereum. So how do I feel about Ethereum, right? Well, the thing about Ethereum right now is that it makes sense as a narrative. It is the largest blockchain outside of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin really is not that good for any type of smart contracts. I mean, people have tried to put things on the Bitcoin network, but let's be honest, Bitcoin's best attribute is the fact that it is simply sound money, right? That is what it does best. Bitcoin is not trying to do anything besides that. It is digital gold, arguably better than gold, and it doesn't need another narrative. And actually, it's that simplicity that makes it worth holding long term. In fact, this is a little bit of a tidbit. I wasn't going to go off topic here, but back in the day, Satoshi actually had the opportunity to make the code more complicated for Bitcoin, and he chose to go with script, which is arguably archaic and difficult to program on, but it was done intentionally because the sole purpose was not to add all these different potential layers to Bitcoin. It was just simply to make sure that Bitcoin could do one thing, which is verify the ledger and be essentially the strongest network on planet Earth, right? So here comes the Ethereum narrative. And now what you're seeing is with these funds, for example, with Bitmine, $25 billion raise to buy Ethereum, crazy calls, what you're hearing is this new idea that we can build on top of it, right? You have the Stablecoin Genius Act in the United States, which, possibly could lead ways to CBDC. I'm not going to get into all that right now. But at the end of the day, if these governments or corporations, etc., are looking to build on a blockchain, it's pretty much going to be Ethereum. That's what most of them are looking at right now, right? So I think that it would have a very good narrative play. And considering Ethereum hasn't even broken its all-time high yet, and as I showed you in the chart, it's actually starting to finally come up compared to Bitcoin, then basically what this is telling you is long-term, hold Bitcoin. But if you've been holding Bitcoin this whole time, and you were to rotate at least a portion of that into Ethereum, it could potentially be a good play. However, I do want to just add one bit of warning. For me, this would not be a super long-term hold, okay? I would definitely be looking to take advantage of this play in order to accumulate more Bitcoin. And this is the only reason why, and I might get some hate for this, but I'm just trying to be honest. When you think about some of these technologies, I don't know how old everyone is that watches my videos, but don't forget, we had stuff like Blockbuster back in the day, right? Massive chain across the United States. Everybody in the 90s knew about Blockbuster, and then Netflix came out and they couldn't quite compete. Nokia phones was basically the most popular phone company. Everyone I knew in school had a Nokia phone. Nokia was the future, and then Apple made the iPhone, which wasn't actually that successful at its initial launch. But then with these new apps that you could add touchscreen, they, fixed the sensitivity, and ultimately that market completely went away. So I'm not saying that will happen to Ethereum, but there is sort of the question, if, for example, stablecoin companies, there's even been rumors about Tether potentially making their own blockchain just for sending stable coins. Now, if that was to happen, then what would the ultimate need be for Ethereum, right? With all of the things that happen with it. So that's just something to think about. Just because you're first doesn't mean you're the best. But I do believe that right now we are just starting to get that institutional interest into Ethereum. I mean, we're really even just starting to get it into Bitcoin as well. So I do believe for the remainder of the cycle, it could potentially be a good play to get yourself some Ethereum, not financial advice, but also I wouldn't not be holding Bitcoin, and I wouldn't be putting more into another coin than I would Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin's going to double or something like that, right? And let's say Ethereum could do a 3 to 4x possibly, well, then now that 5% of your portfolio could become 20%, 25%. So the risk to the downside, if you only you only lose 5% of your portfolio, you still have the other 95%. But if that 5% investment does a 4 or 5x, well, now you have 20 to 25% you can have to the upside on that trade. So that's basically all I wanted to let you guys know about today. For everyone out there, I'm not, a Bitcoin maxi. I just do believe that Bitcoin is the king, and I just don't see this flippening, and by the way, be careful when they start talking about the flippening, because that's usually signs that things are getting a little overheated. But anyway, guys, that's basically it for me today. Just wanted to make a cool sort of down-to-earth video, talk about my thoughts on Ethereum right now. And, you have seen those charts. Bitcoin flows into Ethereum. Ethereum flows into altcoins. I do believe that cycle will continue. And the reason I believe that is because of human emotion, right? Fear and greed. People are going to get greedy. Bitcoin's not going to be enough. Ethereum's not going to be enough. So they're going to start moving into some of these other coins. But just remember that most of these coins do not outperform Bitcoin cycle to cycle, including Ethereum. The only coin that I'm aware of is BNB. That one did, okay? But that's like 1 out of millions of coins. So that is where I leave you guys today. Let me know what you think. Are you full on Bitcoin maxi? Are you taking advantage of some of the altcoins, maybe Ethereum right now? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? For me right now, this is my play. Of course, like I said, if you're putting 5% in and you lose it, you lose 5%. But the upside could outweigh the downside risk, right? That's it for me today, guys. Let me know what you think. Also, if you want, check out these tutorials right here, right now. One of the things that people don't understand when it comes to leverage is you don't have to be a hero. You don't have to do 100x leverage. You can literally do a 2x leverage. So if you're doing, for example, 2x on Ethereum and Ethereum does a 4x, well, now you've done an 8x with really not that much risk, unless the price falls 50%, which I don't see that happening at this point in the market right now. So until next time, guys, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.